Brilliant. Welcome. Okay. So here we go. So we're going to go for an hour. So we might go 5 minutes over since I'm starting at 5 minutes late. But what the plan is for today, and let me just sort of start with a disclaimer, standard disclaimer. Basically, I'm not recommending any stocks. Backtesting has limitations, and all trading involves risk. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at stocks that were in play last week using the in-play template, and then we're going to do something interesting with Excel to compare the list of stocks that were in play the week before and see some interesting charts there. And then we're going to get into what I think a lot of people requested last time, which was the idea of building your own templates. So we'll get started. I'll also say that the Easter week discount does end tomorrow night, Sunday midnight Pacific time. If you go to the website, you'll be able to get the special 40% discount on EdgeRater, and yeah, that will be coming down tomorrow night. So make sure you take advantage of that if you don't have the program already. If you're using the trial, here's a bunch of resources. You can watch the video and make a note of these links, but they will help you do certain things. So having said that, let's go ahead and start with EdgeRater and the in-play template. And actually you're going to see something that is coming up as well for next month, but mostly you'll be able to do most of what I do right here right now. So let me just see. I actually have two versions of EdgeRater. One is the version I'm currently working on for development, and let me just make sure what version I have here. Okay, good. So we are going to take a look at the in-play template, and what I'm going to do with in-play is basically look back for 5 days. So I'm going to set 5 days into the period here. I'm looking through a list of all securities that are trading over $1 and 250,000 shares. And my list, this list only has 2 years worth of data. It doesn't really matter. I'm not using seasonality with this particular template, so I don't need to have 10 years worth of data. And the only reason I don't have that in this list is it's faster to run certain scans. So so I keep this list down to about 2 years. So I'm just going to hit run on here, and we'll process these stocks. There's 2,800 stocks in here reasonably quickly. It's about 7 seconds on this computer. Just said 7 seconds down here, and we'll come up with a list of what has been in play this week. So what it's showing us at the top of the list are the things that have had the biggest moves from the lowest low to the highest high. So you might also like to sort by previous close to close, meaning at the end of the week before, the close of that week to the close of this week, what had the biggest gain. So that would be things that it will be sorted in a slightly different way. Whereas max play will actually tell you what the lowest low to highest high was, and potentially what you could have made if you were if you had foresight and could see what the lowest low and highest high was going to be. So some people saying, well, one person is saying they don't have sound, and let me just bring up the little graphic I made just to give people a chance to get sound working. But the trick is, well, everyone who can hear this obviously has sound working, so I won't even bother saying what the trick is. So let me just bring up. All right, if you can hear me and you've got audio working, can you just type a Y again into the chat box? I just need to kind of make sure that we've got that working. Thanks, Dan, Jim, Dennis. Okay, great, Jeff. Fantastic. Okay, and I'm getting intermittent messages on my computer that the connection is down. So if it happens to the screen goes blank, type something in the chat box and let me know, and I'll pause and make sure we get reconnected again before I continue. Okay, back to where we were. Right, so this is an interesting way of seeing, the stocks in this list, and this is a list basically of anything that might be worth trading. You know, all of the other stocks in there were either very low priced or very thinly traded. So these are probably the candidates that you want to pay attention to. So what you can see from this list is PSTR is at the top of the list, and let's take a look at the chart. Okay, PSTR. All right. So immediately using this template, you can see during the week what stocks were in play, what you could have made the most money on. So 285% is possible to have made lowest low to highest high in PSTR. Of course, the prior close to close is 182%. So and you can see the kind of move that it made. And as we scroll down through the list quickly, and the way to do that, let me just show how to do that. Okay, is to place this screen on top, which is actually quite interesting that it's not sticking on top. Yeah, I think something is going wrong with my Windows at the moment, so anyway, apologies for that. Let's continue anyway with this. Is my screen blanking out now and again? Because I keep getting messages on the from Join Me saying that the connection is down. If you can still see the screen, can you type a Y? Okay. If it keeps going blank, yeah. Okay, pixelating. Right. Okay. Well, we'll try and keep going. I think at the moment the internet connection is good. But okay, yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, but during the week, and I'm on Comcast cable here. During the week, I actually had a whole day without internet connection, which was very frustrating. Had to resort to using my phone instead, which I think turned out to actually be quite a lot faster than my cable internet connection. You have to love Comcast. At 8 in the morning, the connection went down. Went to the website to find out what was going on. They said service is out in your area. We expect to have service resumed by 9 p.m. It's like, wow, what? no explanation as to why that was. Yeah, I think it's quite. It should be in a modern day that kind of thing should not happen. So anyway, luckily I have a backup, and we can always resort to that. Yeah, Jim. Right. So anyway, we've got our list. So from here we can immediately see these are the candidates that you would have made money on if you were playing these candidates and looking. These are the candidates that you would have made money on last week if you were playing them. But so that's an interesting thing. But what's more interesting is, could you have picked these out the week before that? Right. It's okay. Well, it's all fine looking back now and saying, you know, they were the best movers, but what about the week before? So let's first of all, I'm going to save this list, and I'm going to save it as. Oh look, that comes back now. That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to save this as in play. 410 is the last date of data we have there, and it's a 5-day scan. I'm going to save that in here. Looks like I've already saved that one time, so I'm going to replace that. Okay, so that's now saved on my hard drive. I know what it is. What I'm going to do now is go and select a new date to do the run, and this will be the Friday prior to that. We'll do Saturday, and we'll take the Friday as the last date. But this time, what we want to do is run, because that week was actually a 4-day week. I'm going to set this number of days to run to be 4 in here, so we'll find out what was moving that week. And then I'll hit run on here. So I'm running this same template over the same list of stocks and trying to find out what it was saying about what moved in those 4 weeks, so the weeks leading up to Good Friday. Okay, and what you see in here is that you have a different list. Obviously, it'd be interesting to know if things were coinciding. And you know, we have Voltari at the top of the list, Nymax Pharmaceuticals, Great Basin Scientific. So what I'm going to do with this one is save this as a different name. This is run for the 3rd, so this is going to be my in-play. I'm going to call it in-play 0403. 5 days, well, 4 days, well, 1 week, and save that. Whenever you save it, by default it's going to save it in the reports directory, which is your documents EdgeRater reports directory. Okay, and what we can do here, and this is sort of somewhat more interesting because we actually have data for the following week. So I can shrink up this screen and go through my list. Now my chart is already set to the mode of replay, meaning that I'm only ever going to see the data for the date that I've run the scan. So I can go through this list and see what they looked like at the end of last week, and then we could sort of play through and see what happened to them in the meantime. I mean, what happened last week, and that would be somewhat interesting. But and as an example, how you would do that is you would just take the replay mode button, and you would just go through day by day, see how these things played out. So it turns out the top stock in that list, which was a 272% gainer on the 4 days leading up to Good Friday, actually went on to be the biggest gainer this week as well, or a big gainer. So I forget exactly what the number was for this week, but as you can see, if we go back to where that Friday was, okay, if you would have placed a trade, maybe, I don't know, above the high of this bar over here, you could have potentially been in on Monday, and you can see that this actually went on to be a massive winner. So the question then you might ask is, is it profitable to take these trades that are big winners and trade them the following week? Because essentially they've already sort of given up their they've raised their hand a little bit, and probably on a lot of people's radar that they're in play, and so it attracts traders, it attracts volume, and the question is, is it profitable to be trading them on alongside, and can you design a strategy around that? And there are all sorts of things that you can find out with EdgeRater. So what I've done here, and what I'm going to do here, is a new thing that is coming up actually it's going to be in next month's template release. If you are subscribed to templates, you will have this new ability with templates, with all of your templates. Okay, with all of your templates starting from the next release, which will be 2015.5. Currently you see I'm on 2015.4.1. And that is, what I'm going to do is pop out this template, so it comes up in a separate window. You can do that right now. That's not the feature. Okay. And what you can also do is open. So I've got on here, I'm looking at the 4.2, and I want to open up the 4.10 one that we ran. Okay, so now I've got yeah, thanks George, I might mention that in a sec. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is two screens side by side, one for 1 week 4.2, one for the second week 4.10. Now what I often like to do is to be able to copy columns from one screen to another screen, and this can be from any template that you've run. You could have run a seasonality template, you could have run a linear regression template, a squeeze template, MACD divergence, any of the templates in the system, and you've produced a report for any date, be it current or historical. And often you want to combine various columns together, and of course they're all sorted in slightly different ways. So this new ability will be the ability to copy a column. So let's take now, we'll look back at the 4.2, and let's say we'll take the open to close. We'll sort by that field. It doesn't really matter what field we sort by. What we're going to do is copy this column, open to close column, and I'm going to hit copy column, And then in the template over here, I'm going to hit insert copied column. Now what that's done is it's actually, and it's not as simple as you might think, because these things are all in different orders. So what it's done, it's gone through and it's found out the corresponding symbol and then found out the value that's in the column that you selected and copied that into your new report. So what you are then able to do is take fields, columns from any template, any template you've run, and put them all into one template, or the fields that you're interested in. So it's actually quite a flexible way of doing that. It's possible you can actually do this right now using a feature in Excel which is called VLOOKUP. But essentially what this is doing is it's doing something a little bit better than VLOOKUP. First of all, it's a lot easier to do, and secondly, you might have noticed it's actually copying over the formatting as well. So it's copied the header of the column, and it's copied the formatting of the header, and it's also copied the formatting of the cells that have been copied. So anyway, it's going to be quite a useful feature. But so what that lets us do then, now we've done that, what it lets us see is a comparison of the open to close. Okay, and remember that this is open to close of the week before, and we can sort by that column now. And now we can look at the corresponding max play this week. So here you can see that VLTC had an open to close the prior week of 217%, and the max play this week in that same stock would have been 168%. But you can also take a look at some of the others. You can see that GoDaddy here doesn't have a value because that prior week, this is an IPO. It doesn't have any data going back past then, so we get the num in that column. If you don't like looking at the num, then you can filter it with the little filter drop down, of course. You just find your num there and uncheck it. Okay, so so it gives us an immediate feel for whether it's good to be playing in the stocks that have been moving the prior week. You can look down here, you can see NYMEX 162% gain the prior week. This week its open to close value is actually minus 29%, so it's had a bit of a pullback. It might be interesting for the following week, and all kinds of things like that you can determine. But if you take a look at, then the question that you might ask is, what if I took the top X number of stocks, and in general, what sort of performance have they had the following week? And so what you can do is copy this into an Excel spreadsheet, and here we get into actually Excel, and now we're not looking at EdgeRater anymore, but it is the data has come from EdgeRater. So let me just close that down. These are all the types of things that you can do to get answers to your questions. Okay, so essentially what I've done is I've copied over the open to close from the 2nd, and then I've copied over the open to close of the week of the 10th, and they're just in these columns, 2 columns here. And then I've also created a couple more columns, and you see the values in this column. It's an average, essentially a running average of the last 10 values, and then I've got one for the this week side as well. And then from that I'm able to produce, anyone's able to do this of course, produce a chart, which is the interesting part, where you can take a look, and the top chart is all about the average side. So these columns G and H is connected to that data. And let me see if I can zoom that up a little bit more. Okay, a little bit. So the blue line is actually represents the performance, the stocks for the prior week. All right, we've got the high on the left hand side. You've got the stocks that had the biggest percentage gain that week, going all the way down through to the stocks that had the worst percentage loss that same week. And then the second series of dots or lines is plotted on how that same stock, those same stocks did this week. But this is, remember, this is the average side, so this is taking an average of 10, the top 10 essentially, and then the next, it's a running average. So as we go down to the next one, it kind of includes the prior 10 as well. But this is interesting because what you will see here is that the stocks that were really moving on this area of the curve right here, those stocks have more volatility. I think you can visually see that they have more volatility in the upcoming weeks. And as you come down into the center area here, you've got the stocks that didn't really move very much the prior week, and they're not moving as much as on the front end or the tail end of this chart either. And then as you come down into the stocks that had bad weeks, had a bad week the week before, then you can see that they are actually also very volatile. But what is also interesting is that the 0% line is right here. So even these stocks that had bad weeks, so anything sort of from this point on the blue line, the week prior was actually a negative performer. Okay, but pretty much every one of these stocks has been a positive performer this week. And as you get further to the right hand side, the ones that performed worse tended to perform better, but with more volatility this week. So I find that one is interesting. The chart below is basically, instead of doing the averaging, it's just taking each individual stock and saying what was the percentage return prior week, and then plot that, okay, and then take the percentage return this week and plot that directly underneath the relevant point. You get a similar sort of looking line. Obviously you get these tails that are very high percentages, and the other end of the chart is a very low percentage, or a very high negative percentage, I should say. And then the dots will show the performance this week. And again, you'll see there is a tendency for stocks that have been moving a lot the prior week to be quite volatile. If you look in the center of this chart here, you see there's quite a compression in terms of all of the stocks. You get a lot of dots that are very close together. Okay, and as you get more towards the tail end, these dots become more dispersed in here, meaning more volatility. And then you see the individual big gainers. So you've got a big gainer in the middle here, even though this came out of a prior week only having about maybe a 5% gain or thereabouts, or whatever that line value is. And I should be looking at the blue line. Okay, maybe a 2% the prior week, but this one had a 45% gain in its INUV this week. Okay, so I think this is a very interesting thing to put together. All kinds of questions like this is just an example of what you can do with the data that is generated with reports in EdgeRater. So I wanted to show that, and it also highlights the feature of being able to copy any column into and produce your own reports from other reports you've created, which I think is going to be very neat. Okay. So that is basically the the little review. We'll do the same next week. I'm probably going to do another webinar next Saturday morning as well, and maybe review the action in the same way that I just did, and we can start to kind of compare on a week-by-week basis. I think that will be good. So the next half of this this webinar, I want to go into how you create your own templates. A lot of people ask that, and you note that I'll produce. Yeah, most people. I'm not sure if it's a good time for everybody to get together on a Saturday morning, but it works. It works for me. Yes, I should get a social life. It's true. Thanks, Jeff. So yeah, so I'm going to have a look at templates. I put templates together every month, as everybody knows. Some of them are more sort of involved and complicated, involve a lot more processing than others, but they all have some value. The key with the software is don't be put off by the number of templates that are in the system or the depth of functionality and how far you can go in analyzing stocks. it's it's a program that's designed for to be easy to use. With just pick a template, pick one template, and just use that every day. That's all you need to do. And then as you get familiar with that, what you'll be able to do then is experiment with more and more templates and more features in the program. So it's comforting to know that you're not going to outuse the program. The program, there's always something more in the program for you to do. It's a good investment is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so how do you put a template together? This type of template, the in-play template, is what we call in EdgeRater a last bar value template. So if I look at the parameters sheet in this template, you'll see that the template type is set to last bar value. And that basically means that the template is going to run some chart scripts. And these are scripts that you can put onto a chart and see the results on a chart. For instance, let's take a look at a chart right now, just a random one. Let me drag over to the chart, the squeeze, or let's put the squeeze layout on the chart. Okay, so each of these indicators that you see on a chart is produced by a chart script. And they have values for every point along the chart. But the template is essentially showing you the very last bar. It's called a last bar values template, and it's just showing you the values of the indicators in the chart script for the last bar. And so what I'm going to talk about today is how you can produce your own last bar values templates. And there are other types of templates in the system. I'm not going to get into those today. So the first thing to do is to, before I do that, let me say we're going to start by looking at the linear regression template, and we're going to kind of use that as our base template. And so, yeah, just make a note of that. So this is, if you look at linear regression template, and it's under linear regression analysis category, if you look at that, you'll find the values sheet. Okay. The value sheet has a bunch of columns, and at the top, at the heading of every column, well, this is the header down here, row 7, but in grey on row 5, or row 4, sorry, you'll see that there are some there's some text, and these are actually referring to scripts that are going to be run in order to produce the values for these columns. They're grey because it's not intended to draw attention to this. You don't need to know what these are, but you can still slightly see them just so that you can be aware that that they're there and they're producing the values for these columns. Having said that, let's close down the app, and this is the step you should do. You should, before you start creating a new template, close the app down. You can keep the app open. That's interesting. You can keep the app open during development of a template, but for the very first time when you create a template, close the app down. And let me close, I've got two apps open, so let me close both down, otherwise it's going to confuse me. Okay. Alright, so the first step is to come into the EdgeRater root folder. And that is under your documents, EdgeRater, and you know that there's a bunch of folders in here, and all of the templates that are delivered on a monthly basis are all in the system folder. So you don't really want to work on anything in the system folder because it can be overwritten. Whenever you download new templates, they'll be overwritten. If you make changes in there, they're not going to be permanent. So you definitely don't want to do any work in there. But what you want to do is copy one of the templates out to the Edge Club folder, one level up. And by the way, this is what we're talking about now is not something that I would recommend for new people to do. Just get familiar with the way that templates work in the system before you try and start creating your own. But there are people online here, many people with EdgeRater that have been using the program for a while and are interested in doing this. So it may seem a little more complicated than normal, and that's okay. So we'll find the linear regression template. It's down here. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to put it into the root folder. And what I'm going to do, and I said before, you do need to have Excel in order to create your own templates, and you'll see why in a sec. And so I'm opening this up in Excel. That is opening on another screen, and it's taking a while. I'm not sure why. Okay, I'll bring it into this screen here. So the very first thing you need to do in a template is change the name, because if you don't change the name, it'll confuse you a lot when you're designing a template. So change the name to, I'm going to call this webinar template, just as an example. You don't really want to change. Definitely don't want to change the template type. Just keep it as last bar values. The where we've got the help video and help page URL, you probably want to delete those. It doesn't really matter for what we're going to do. So you change the parameters. You've changed your name. Go to the template info page, and when you're on the template info page, you can change the name of, or the title of that. That will also help you in figuring out what template is what. So I'm going to call that webinar template, and I just will delete that. Okay, and then I'm going to save this back to the file system, and we're going to save it as my new name, and so it's going to be called webinar. And I could have actually done this on the file system before I opened it up, would have been a better idea, but I'm just going to save this as webinar template. Okay, so on the file system we have let's make this a little bit more sensible. We don't need this linear regression template now because we saved it as webinar template. So let's just open that one up. And again, it's taken a while. I don't know why that is. It's very strange. Let's find out what's going on my computer. Okay, I'm going to close down a few apps right now. Excuse me while I just do that. It will just improve the performance of this computer. Yeah, excuse me a sec. Okay, and I think the next thing that's taken up, let me close down Firefox as well. For some reason that's taken up a lot of processing. Let's get rid of that. Alright. So the next thing on the list that's taken up the processing time is Camtasia, and that's fine, we need that. So here's the webinar template. Now the first thing I would do in this template is go to the values sheet, and this is where basically you're going to do the work of putting in chart scripts. And the very first thing I would do is delete the heading and delete most of the columns. I would go and delete those. And then I would delete the rest of these, simplify things a little bit, and delete that. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm starting from a known template, a template that has everything in it that I need in terms of the named ranges, which we'll talk about in a minute, and just cutting it down. You could start completely from scratch, putting a template together from a blank workbook, but it's a little bit more. You would need to know a lot more steps. It's much easier to start from a known template and then change it or modify it. Okay, so now we've got a template, and what I also like to do is, I don't know if you're familiar with Excel, but having merged ranges is not conducive to editing a template, so I like to kind of make sure my ranges are not merged. Okay. Alright, so now we're back to, we're down to a pretty basic template. It's got a row in the template, you'll notice, with symbol ABC, and this is basically an example row. It doesn't have real data in, but it's a way that you can actually format data, and the formatting that you apply to this row will actually get applied to all of the rows. When the template runs across your symbol list, it will copy down the formatting that's in this row, and it will copy it down to all the other rows. So I like to put examples in here just so I know how it's going to end up formatting. And then of course you have to choose what you want to put in the template. We're not going to put linear, well, we could. Let's just do that. I'm going to actually get rid of these two columns. This will be a good start. Okay, the chart script that I'm going to be putting into this template is just the linear regression percent annual slope 5-day, and that is in column F. Alright, I'm going to save this, and from now on we can have EdgeRater up and running, and it's actually a good idea to have EdgeRater up and running, because as you make changes you'll be able to see the changes reflected immediately in the program. So let me just get EdgeRater running again. And the reason I had to close it down is when you create a brand new template, the program will not read the folder, the EdgeRater root folder for the Edge Club folder, and rescan it and realize that there's a new template in there. So you have to run the program again, and then it will look at that folder and pick out all of the templates in there, and then they will appear in your list of templates on the right hand side of the program. So it's just starting up again on my other screen. Is everyone with me so far? So far so good? Any questions so far? If you type a question in, or it's good so far? Okay, good. Okay. And there seems to be a real heavy load on this computer right now. This is very weird. Okay. We'll let that go. Yeah, so merging headers. No, the point was, I was trying to make, there were two things really. There was the you can kill everything from basically that you don't want, all of the columns you don't want, select them all and just delete them, like so. The other thing is, if you work with Excel and you've got merged cells, you notice now I've merged these 4 cells. Okay, so they're one cell. If you keep that as a merged range and you start to want to move columns around, Excel doesn't let you do it because it's a merged range. You see, we can't do that to a merged cell. So what I like to do is just before finalizing the template, I like to keep all of the cells unmerged, because then I can move columns around and that kind of thing. Okay, so EdgeRater is now up and running. Let's bring that down to my screen. Hang on a second. It's coming from a much bigger screen. Alright, and what we should find is if we click on My Templates, now the new template that we're working on appears in My Templates. So that's generally the way it works. If you put a template or an XLSX file, which is an Excel file, into that folder, the Edge Club folder, it will appear in my templates folder within the program. And you'll see the name of it now, and this is why we had to change the name, is the name that appears here is, let me bring up Excel again and shrink that down a little bit. I'm going to put this on one side. I don't normally do this, but just so that you can see what's going on. Alright, so the name that you see there, webinar template, is coming from over here, parameters, webinar template. Now that I've actually got this template to load within the program, I could change this to webinar template A and save it. Okay, and you can see that it actually changed within EdgeRater, so it's immediately picked up my change. I don't have to, if I make a change to the template now, I don't have to close down EdgeRater and reopen it again. It's just going to immediately pick it up. So I'm just going to call that webinar template, of course. Put that back. You see it's changed over here. Okay. So the template as is now is basically running one script called lr% and slope brackets 5. And to prove this works, I'm going to run it. I'm going to when I develop a template, I always choose a shorter list of stocks, because you know, if you run it on a shorter list, it's going to take a lot less time to run. So let's expand that up a little bit, and then hit run. Okay, so you've basically got the template is working now for just this one script. So there are only 3 things that are being calculated in this script from EdgeRater. 5 things. The first is that the column of symbols is being put in. The second is there's a description being put in. You can see that has this description script up here. There is a script to get the description of the stock. The third thing is that the date is being put in, and that's the date of the last bar. And then we've got close is being put in. We've got column F is being put in, which is the script. But you'll note that column E is not actually being provided by EdgeRater. So if you look at what column E is, let's go back over to the template. Column E is calculated. It's an Excel formula. So if you put a formula into a column and it relies on other cells, you see this direction here is basically saying if the if the annualized percent is less than 5% and greater than -5%, then direction is 0. Otherwise, the direction is going to be set to a 1 value, or otherwise it's going to be a -1 value. So all kinds of, this is a logical formula, but there's all kinds of formulas you can use. Any of the Excel formulas are going to work in the program. And so what that does is just puts an up into this direction column based on that value there. So for instance, if I change the value in here to -10%, you'll see how the formatting works. This direction now is changed to a down, and the formatting of this cell has been configured to be red if it's -10%. You can set the formatting using, I usually do it using conditional formatting in Excel. So if we look at, let's bring that up a bit there. If you go to conditional formatting, manage rules, you can see that this cell is going to be red if the value is less than 0, and it's going to be blue if the value is greater than 0. Alright, so the important things that this template has to have in order for it to be run as a last bar values template are names within, or named ranges within the worksheet. So the important named ranges are the symbol column, and you'll note if you bring down this is your list of named ranges in Excel. There's ER symbol col, and that is actually set to here's another reason why you might want to unmerge something. Whenever you select the named range, okay, it's really looking at symbol column is set to A. So EdgeRater looks at the named ranges and it says that you've got symbol column set to A, so it's going to put the symbols in column A, one after the other. The second thing is a date column. You don't have to have a date column, but if you want to show the date, then you name a column with date column, and it will pop the dates into that column. Another important one is the header row. That is set to column 7. And the reason that's important is for the clickability of the header. You'll note if you're in EdgeRater, let's just come back in here, you'll note that you can click on the cell itself and it will sort by that column. That's enabled as a result of having this ER header row named range on row 7. Alright, so that's an interesting one. The other another important named range is EdgeRater. That is this, essentially the whole of this data area down here. Currently it's only one row, because there's only one piece of data in there, the sample piece of data, and there always has to be one sample in there. But what will happen is when the EdgeRater runs the template and creates the report, and let's pop this out into a separate workbook so I'll show you what happens to the processing. If I look at EdgeRater now, you'll see that it's actually set to cover the whole of this data range. So it's expanded as it's copied down all of the formatting. It's expanded the data range too. Okay, and let's go back to Excel over here. All right, and then so those are important things to have as named ranges. You can define a named range quite easily in Excel if you're not familiar with that. You basically, for instance, if I wanted to name column L, maybe I'll give it a random name. I'll say test column. All right, that's all I do is I type the name over in this name box over here, and then that's just one of the features of Excel, named ranges. So if I ever go back to test col, it's going to highlight this whole column over here. Okay. 1 second now. I'm just going to take a look at some questions. It's about filtering. Right. Yeah. So the filtering. Excel has this feature called auto filter, which is what you're seeing with these drop down arrows here, and you put that in with I think it's under the data tab. There's a filter button. So if I wanted to not filter these or not have these headers filterable, then I can turn that off, or if I highlight them I can just turn on filtering. So if you've got rows or headers in your template that don't have filtering right now, you can add filtering like that and click on save, and it will be saved and in the template for filtering too. Okay. Alright, now the other thing that's important to know is so EdgeRater, when it runs a template, it needs to know what scripts to run for the different columns, and that is not done by naming columns with the script. What it's done, how it's done, is basically there are named ranges called ER_F for formula, and so I have two formula ranges within this spreadsheet, F1 and F2. I could have just had one formula range and had it be the whole of row 4 if I was going to put all of the formulas on row 4. And so EdgeRater will then look in all of the ERF ranges and find if there are any formulas, and if it finds a formula, it will try and run that formula and provide a value for the output. Okay, so let's add a new field. and I'll show you what you need to be aware of and do when you add a new field. Let's pick one. And also you need to know what the name of the script is that you want to put into the field. That's also important. So all of the scripts that are possible to put into a template are all under your chart scripts tab within the chart. Okay, so here's a chart. I'm on the chart in the chart designer. Here are all my scripts. So I've got some of my own scripts that I've put in. And here's all, you should have scripts that exactly match what I've got in here. System indicators and system scans, high probability trading scripts, candle pattern scans. Okay, any of these are possible to put into a template. So just let's take an example. Let's try something at something at random. I'm going to choose. Let's try. Could be anything here. It really doesn't matter. But something that you're probably familiar with in terms of like a moving average. That's a classic, right? So let's look for my moving average. So how do you know the name of the script? It's important to know the name of the script to put into the field. So what you can do is drag the script you want onto a chart, then look at your formula parameters, and the name of the script is actually the name that appears up here. See, it says MA. That's the name I would use within the template. If you're using something that's within the scans area and not the indicators area, so say I wanted to put my cross above the upper Bollinger Band, that's always a good example. You see this stock hasn't actually crossed above the upper Bollinger Band. Oh, here it has a couple of times. But say I wanted to put that into a template, then I pop it onto the chart, into a new chart area. Okay, we can find stocks in here that actually have. There you go. There's the Brazil index actually does have a cross above upper Bollinger Bands later in the chart. So Jeff, do you see my chart change now to EWZ? Does anyone see the chart has changed to EWZ? Okay. Okay, good. I think the recording of this is going to be a lot clearer than the actual broadcast, because I think there are some intermittent issues with the internet right now. But the recording is still working well, so that's good. Okay. So yeah, so how do you find the name for AUBB? But remember, it was under the scans area on the right hand side. So if I click into this area where I've placed the script and then look on the right under formula parameters, you see that the name has changed to scan dot, and that's the important thing. Because it's been under the scans category, it actually has scan dot in front of it. And the other important thing, which is a little bit of a bug right now, is just change the parameter. If your script has parameters, just change the parameter, or one of the parameters, and change it back again, because what you'll notice up here is that now this is expanded to fully show both parameters on the script. So if I want to put that into a template, that's the text that I would use. Yeah, sorry, Ed. So scan.aubb20,2. Now let's go back to the template that we're working on. Yeah, things are really slowed down over here too. It's crazy. Okay. Alright, so let's add a column. What I'll do is I'll insert a column here. What I'll also do is get rid of that, and I should have unmerged that. Yeah, I think the tape will be fine, Jeff. Something is going on with my PC right now, because the the fans are spinning, everything is a little bit sluggish, and I keep getting an internet message pop up from Join Me saying it can't connect to the internet. So maybe it's Comcast. Let's blame Comcast again. Yeah, thanks. Alright, so I've created a new column. The reason that it's good to do an insert column rather than an add column, see, I could have just put it in here as a column on the side, but the EdgeRater range that I told you about, if you do an insert column, the range will actually be expanded now to include this new column. Whereas if I just wanted to say I'm going to type my new field over here, new field, and type in the script name, whatever that's going to be, you'll see that EdgeRater is not expanded to include that, and the EdgeRater range has to cover the whole range of fields that that you want processed by EdgeRater. So doing the insert will, if you're inserting in the middle of a range, will just make sure the range expands to include your new column. All right, so having said that, of course, everyone's forgotten what the actual name was that I needed to type in here. So let's go back, and when I say everybody, I mean me. So yeah, scan.aubb20,2. So let me just type that in, scan.aubb20, 20,2. So I've hard-coded in these parameters as 20 and 2. You could have these rely on other fields or other cells in the template, so that you can change them before you run the template, so you don't have to have them hard-coded into the cell. But for ease of showing you what to do, I'm just going to hard-code it to 20 and 2. I also said, remember, that it has to be in a range that is named ERF something or other. So let's make sure our ERF1 covers this range over here, B, C, and D. ERF2 does actually cover this new range, so everything should be good. Having just put that in there, just the name of that, inserted the column, put the name in here, save it, and we'll save it as the same name, of course. Yeah. Alright, and then close this down, go over to the templates. I'll hit reset here just so we can make sure that it's going to pick up the, yeah, you can see I've hit reset now and it's reread that from the file system. It's got our new column added in here, and if all is well and good and we hit run, okay, we should have the value, the output value of that chart script will now appear. And remember, it's the last bar value will now appear in this column. And look, if you look at the drop down, you can see that there actually is a 1 in here somewhere. So if I can sort by this, so now at the top of the list, these stocks have actually got crosses above the upper Bollinger Band because they've got a 1 value in here. And of course you can take a look at those on a chart. It's always interesting to do. Sometimes you get quite distracted when you're putting together a template. What I will do is put a layout on here that has Bollinger Bands. Squeeze layout has Bollinger Bands. And you can see, yeah, it did just cross above the upper Bollinger Band. Let me put that. So I always kind of like to verify as well as I go along, as I work along, and you probably would like to do the same, that it's picking out the right things. So if it says there's a cross above the upper Bollinger Band, let's look at a chart and make sure that it has just crossed above the upper Bollinger Band. And what you're seeing now is, as I'm going through this list, you see my layout has now changed back to a different layout. Why has that happened? That is a good question, and the answer is the template provides layout information. And I haven't changed anything from this template with layouts, and that's what I should do in order to get that to work. So there's another tab in here called Chart Layouts, and if I click on there, you can basically see how this has been arranged. There's a range column which is telling you, which is saying what data from the values sheet do I want to associate with this particular chart layout. And I've got 5 in here because we had, or actually 7 in here because we had 7 different linear regressions, but obviously we're not looking at linear regressions now. So what I'm just going to do is just delete all of that. I don't want this template to be associated with a chart layout. If you did, and it's interesting, I find it very useful to do that, what you can do is what you have to put in here is the area script in this area down here, area scripts, which is telling you what scripts or what chart scripts you want to put onto the chart whenever you click on the symbol. So how do you find out what the area script should be? So what I would do is build my chart first. So I'd come into, let's start from a brand new chart. Okay, and I'm just going to add a moving average onto this chart, and I'm going to set that to be a 50 period moving average. Okay, and I'm also going to put on here cross above upper Bollinger Band because that's something that the template is picking out, and it would be nice to see that on the chart too. Okay, so I've got a simple chart, 50 period moving average and cross above upper Bollinger Band. Now what I'll do is I'll save that layout and I'll call it webinar layout. Click OK. And for now, this is a little bit tricky. It would be nice just to be able to refer to it by name within the template. You can't do that right now. So what you have to do is go to your file system, go back to the EdgeRater folder, look under configuration, look under chart layouts, and open up the My Layouts XML file. Alright, that contains all of the layouts for your chart, and the one we just added was this one down here called webinar layout. And what I'll do is I'll just copy this area scripts down here, and you'll note the area sizes says 3:1. So let me go back to the template itself, and I'll put in here that exact same text. I just copied it from the file. So we're looking at basically main means the open, high, low, close prices. Then we're looking within the same window. It's got a pound sign, and then MA50 means it's in the same window. Semicolon means that there's a new window, and that the chart that's going to appear in that new window is scan.aubb 20,2. Remember I said area sizes were 3:1, and of course we have to associate that with a range. So the range is defined in exactly the same way that Excel defines ranges. So if I wanted it to appear, remember when the chart is expanded, or when the template is run in EdgeRater, it's not just going to have row 8, it's going to have row 8 through 8,000 potentially. So you have to make sure that when you specify a range, you include the entire range in the chart layout tab. So I'm just going to say that the range for this layout is going to be ER_data. Okay, which basically means we know that ER_data named range is expanded whenever you run a template and a report is produced. Okay, and then we're going to save that. Going to open that back up in EdgeRater. Let's bring that over. Where did that go? It's over here. Alright, and then I'll reset the template, and we should find now that we've got the new, so in the chart layouts tab we have ER_data is associated with this script. So now if I run the template, hit run, we've got our values in here. I'm going to reverse sort this, open up the chart, and you didn't see that, it came on my other screen, but actually it changed the layout to be this new layout. So let's take an example, and we'll put it back to a separate different layout. I'll show you how this works. Say I chose a random layout, squeeze layout is there, Now if I'm clicking anywhere within this ER data range in the report, it's going to change my layout back to the layout we just defined. That's how you put your own special layout into your own special template. It's a very, very useful feature. Another thing I'm not sure if everyone is aware of is if you have a layout set and you want to scan through your template or scroll through your template to change your symbols, but you don't want it to apply the layout that you've defined for the template into the chart, you can turn off link to template layout over here. So now if I go through my chart, I'm going to keep the original layout that I was looking at. And obviously if I turn that now on, so it's going to link to template layout, it changes to this new chart layout. So now we've produced a template that's basically showing us linear regression, annualized slopes. We've got a column in here that's calculated using an Excel formula, telling us whether the direction is up or down. And we've got a column here which we've added, which I haven't put the header text in yet, but that doesn't matter, that's really just informational purposes, which is your scan.aubb20,2. So it's scanning for crosses above upper Bollinger Band, where Bollinger Band is set to 20 and 2. And right now it's just putting a 1 into the cell. You might want to put a yes in the cell, or you might want to put a no, or formatting is up to you. And that's something that is an Excel feature. It's not an EdgeRater feature. You define the formatting in Excel and it will be applied to all of the rows when they're put into a report. So probably should have put a Bollinger Band onto this chart. It would have been useful, seeing as we're looking for scans above the upper band. I mean, in terms of putting together a simple template, I think we have covered it. Last bar values template, there might be a few, I think we covered most of it actually. I think you should be able to right now go ahead and follow these steps to produce your own template. And if you try and do that over the next week and you have any questions, let me know, and we'll try and get them answered next weekend. If you have any questions right now for any of the stuff I've just covered or anything else, also type a question in to the chat box and I'll try and answer it. If not, I think we're pretty much done. So I'm just going to hang on a bit and see if we have any questions come in. Was it understandable? Do you think I went too fast? Do you think that you will need to review the video to be able to do it? What do you think? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can blame Comcast, I'm sure. Yeah. yeah, John. I mean, as I said before, this isn't for everybody, and this is really quite advanced. People who have been using the program for a long time like to put their own templates together. Yeah, video speed was awful. Yeah. Okay. Good point. Well, yeah, it hasn't. I mean, every time I've run this before, on using Join Me, it's been fine. So I think that I just think the internet is bad today. So sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. So we know that the video. Yeah, no, we don't have fiber to the house. I think it's an option in this area, but right now we have Comcast cable, and It turned out though the other day when I should have probably used my phone, although it takes up a lot of data on the phone, but when I had to resort to using my phone for the whole of Thursday, and I ran the speed test, it was getting some crazy good speeds, like 100 and something megabits a second. Alright, well what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording now, make sure we get this